shopping for a new car, you might have come across the term CVT, or continuously variable transmission. In today's video, we will discuss what this is, how it works, and if you should get a car with it or not. Let's first begin with what a transmission is. When you start your car, you start an engine. If you look into your gauge cluster, you can see a tachometer. This gauge is showing you the RPM, or rotations per minute, of that engine. When the car starts, it shoots up to about 1300 RPM and then comes down to about 700 after warming up. So why is this important? Well, at that speed, you can't simply drive the wheels directly. It's moving far too quickly. You might think that you can reduce the engine speed to about 30 RPM, but engines have operating RPMs which they will work effectively, and at that low speed, the engine simply cannot operate. And so the solution was to reduce the speed being sent to the wheels. This is where the transmission comes in. Effectively, the transmission chooses how much rotational force is going to the wheels through physical or simulated gear ratios. Now, CVTs are only one type of transmission that's available in a modern vehicle. A CVT contains two pulleys, one steel belt or chain made up of hundreds of small metal links. The chain connects the two pulleys, which transfers the power. One pulley receives power from the engine. One sends the power to the wheels. So how does it vary the ratio? Well, you can see how the pulley are these cones on each side, kind of like a yo-yo, and in between sits the chain. We can vary the diameter of these pulleys by pushing in and outwards. So during normal operation, one pulley can be pushed inward on one side while simultaneously pulling outward on the other side, which effectively changes the gear ratio. Think about it like this. For the output to rotate once, the input must rotate 5 times. You might be wondering, how does the computer do that? Well, the computer has speed sensors that monitor the output of the engine and the speed being sent to the wheels, allowing it to come up with the optimal ratio. In real life, it uses an understanding from fluid dynamics. The fluid dynamics saying is that a fluid cannot be compressed because the molecules are tightly packed. So to use this fact, it uses oil pressure, which can be achieved with this mechanism called a valve body. In the valve body, it will push these cylinder-looking things on the right called solenoids. With more oil pressure, the pulley compresses inwards, and when releasing the pressure, a small spring decompresses the pulley. This mechanism is used for both the pulleys. Now this is the inside of the valve body. It's like a maze, and the fluid travels through these cavities. The solenoids redirect the fluid around, causing a change in oil pressure. That oil comes from an oil pump, which is turned from the rotational force of the engine before it gets to the transmission. This is an oil pump. The small rounded grooves push the oil through and around the system. Now let's talk about the possible gear ratios. Theoretically, there are an infinite number of ratios within a certain set of parameters, usually about 0.6 to 4 or 5. This means at the lowest ratio, for every 5 times that the engine spins, the output spins once. At the highest ratio, every single time the output spins once, the engine spins 0.6 times. This is used on the highway to reduce the RPM of the engine and get better fuel economy. Now, how does reverse gear happen? Well, the engine's output is technically not directly connected to the CVT input. It is rather connected to the sun gear of a planetary gear set. So this here is a planetary gear set. You can see that there is a ring gear, which is the outer gear. The planet gears, the smaller gears on the outside there, and the planet carrier, which houses those little gears. And inside is the sun gear. So during normal driving, when the car is put into D, the valve body via oil pressure will activate a clutch, locking the sun gear to the planet carrier. So technically speaking, it is a bunch of little clutch packs which are compressed together. These clutch packs are high friction steel plates with teeth, and steel plates with teeth on the other side. These compress together with oil pressure. One set is locked with the carrier, one set is locked with the sun gear. When squeezed, it moves the unit as one. When the car is put into reverse, the D clutch disengages and a separate clutch locks the ring gear. So now the ring gear can no longer rotate with the sun gear. As such, the sun gear can still move as usual, but now the planetary carrier gears also start moving. they will move in the opposite direction of the sun gear. As such, moving the carrier in the opposite direction as well. That carrier is moving in the opposite direction means we are achieving the reverse gear. Now, technically, this is only one way the CVT can use the planetary gear set. The engine can also be connected to the ring gear. As such, the sun gear now becomes the output. For drive, lock the ring gear and the carrier together. For reverse, just lock the carrier. Technically speaking, there are an infinite number of gear ratios for reverse as well, but reverse is limited to about 25 miles per hour. So why exactly are CVTs so hated? CVTs primarily use friction to transfer power, unlike all other automatic transmissions. This generates lots of heat, and heat causes major problems. Primarily, it thins out the oil that's used in the system. The oil is kind of like the lifeblood of a CVT. It creates a protective layer preventing full metal-on-metal contact. If this oil thins, the transmission is effectively tearing itself apart. Now, with the need for high friction, stressful activities like towing, hills, and even like launches, like 0 to 60 launches, can cause the CVT to weaken over time and can cause it to induce slip. If slip happens, the CVT must be replaced. CVTs also can't sustain lots of power because the chain or belt just cannot handle it. That's why CVTs are usually seen with cars under 300 horsepower. Most severe CVT issues generally comes from the lack of maintenance. Most CVTs are marketed as having lifetime transmission fluid. Guys, nothing is lifetime. What they mean by lifetime is generally the warranty, 5 years or 60,000 miles. The general consensus is that 30,000 miles is a good time for a fluid replacement. Do note though, CVT fluid is not your typical automatic transmission fluid, meaning it can cost more to replace, but always do it. Of course, the bane of CVTs comes from the fact that they are sealed units. Most places won't work on them. You can't just replace a component. The entire thing must be replaced. That can cost $8,000 to $10,000. So, are there actually any good CVTs? Well, let's see what car brands use them. So, Subaru, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Hyundai, Kia, and Chevrolet. Let's start with Nissan. Nissan has notoriously unreliable CVTs. Nissan was the pioneer of CVTs, and in the early stages, they didn't have good quality parts and lacked cooling. The units, they overheated and the metal wore itself apart. It didn't help that Nissan marketed these as having lifetime transmission fluid. Nissan also targeted people with poor credit and predatory loans for their cars. Let's be honest, people who bought their cars like this, they weren't going to take care of it. So overall, with their poor reputation and having lower resale value as a side effect, I can't really recommend them too much. Modern Nissan, they improved, but there's still so many issues, and they're moving away from their CVTs anyways. Toyota and their CVTs have a physical first gear that they use when accelerated from 0. Because the launch is the most stressful part of the CVT, it helps reduce the pressure, and it doesn't usually use a lot of friction, so it's much more durable. Subaru has their own unique design with a chain instead of a belt. It is used for their proprietary all-wheel drive system. Generally, I would say they are pretty reliable if you buy a new one. However, the older generations have had issues, and there were lawsuits that extended the warranty to 10 years or 100,000 miles. I should note that Subaru also markets their fluid as lifetime. Hyundai and Kia, they're pretty much the same company, also use CVTs for their lower-end cars. These cars typically have under 150 horsepower and come with steel chains. Reliability-wise, I would say about average. Most of the cars in their higher trims can avoid the CVTs, and the higher cars do not have CVTs at all. I personally would be more concerned about their engines. They had an engine recall with more than 5 million units being recalled for engine fires. So I would say just change the fluid and you'll be good to go. Now, Honda. Historically, they have had pretty reliable cars. The CVTs are generally in cars with under 180 horsepower, so again, change the oil and you'll be okay. I would also be more concerned with the engines for this one. Their 1.5-liter turbocharged engines were burning oil. Chevrolet or Chevy also has CVTs. They use them on the Malibu and the Equinox, but only the front-wheel drive variations. The Malibu is discontinued for next year, and the Equinox on most dealers are all-wheel drive only, so I wouldn't get any with the CVT. So, should you get a CVT? Well, let's discuss the pros of a CVT first. You get better gas mileage, more smooth ride, they're cheaper to buy. But CVTs also have a distinct droning sound that when you accelerate hard becomes very noticeable. They also don't have the same feel as other transmissions. So if you're used to driving a normal automatic transmission, the CVT will feel very odd. Another issue, of course, is the high cost of replacement, $8,000 to $10,000. And finally, CVT cars have lower horsepower, so worse performance. So overall, if you like an efficient and smooth experience, you will like CVTs. But if you prioritize engaging feel in fast cars, then CVTs are not for you. You might have also heard of eCVTs, or electronically controlled continuously variable transmissions. This is a rather misleading marketing term, and in my next video, I'll explain what this is, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and see you again next time.